Alright guys, so I am actually making a YouTube video right now. So I'm recording a podcast and also making a YouTube video while having my computer in front of me. So this is a lot going on, but this is something that I want to do, kind of kill two birds with one stone. So I actually wanted to go ahead and hop in. So if you haven't ever been to my YouTube channel, this is actually going to be my first podcast. You can look me up at Enjoy the Fit. So it's NJOYTHEFIT. So Enjoy the Fit. So enjoy just without the E. I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself here on my podcast. But if you are just kind of coming into my video because this is something that you looked up, I'm really excited for you to be here because this is actually something new that I'm going to be talking about. If you've checked out my YouTube channel, you know that a lot of my videos are exercise demonstrations. And I do have some tips about health and fitness here and there. But a lot of what you'll see is just exercise in its form. So I wanted to go ahead and do something different here because I am actually in my second pregnancy right now. And it's super exciting. But the biggest thing I wanted to actually talk about was nutrition. So for me, when I first got pregnant with my first son, it was definitely something different for me. I didn't really know what to expect. I wasn't really prepared. I did know a lot about exercise and nutrition, but when you have your own baby and you find out that you're pregnant, it can be a little scary sometimes. And you want to make sure that you're giving yourself the best nutrition and then also your baby the best nutrition, because all of a sudden when you find out you're pregnant, your mind just changes as to like, I have to be the best parent as possible. At least that's what happened to me. And I went into a mode like, I need to just be eating these foods, X, Y, and Z. So I wanted to go ahead and actually talk about the trimesters and their nutrition. So I'm actually going to start with first trimester today. The first thing that I wanted to talk about in regards to your first trimester is that you really don't need any extra calories at this point in time. Most of the time when you are in your first trimester, you really don't even know you're in it until about 5 or 6 weeks into that trimester. Usually a trimester is about 12 to 13 weeks. So you're already about halfway there by the time you find out. Which is a good thing because, again, you don't need any extra calories during this point. And once you do find out, that still means you are just as normal as you were 5 to 6 weeks ago before you found out you were pregnant. That is super important to keep in mind because a lot of times when people find out that they're pregnant, they immediately start thinking that they're eating for two. And the biggest reason I'm making these videos is because a lot of the times after pregnancy and after delivery, mothers really struggle with their body image because a lot of the times your body does change. And there are, of course, some things that you can't really avoid. But it's good to have control over the things that you can avoid. So like excess weight gain. And that's really the biggest thing because a lot of mothers tend to get this mindset of I'm eating for two, or I'm having these crazy cravings and I'm just eating all my cravings, like this is all I want. But the reality is you have to be mindful because you still have to deal with your afterbirth body. And since your body already changes so much, it can be really hard on you after you have the baby because one, your body's already changed, and then two, if you didn't plan to gain all this excess weight, now you have excess weight to work with, and it can change people like in their faces depending on where you hold weight. It can kind of make your face look different, your body look different, and like I said, the postpartum life is kind of tough and it's different. So it's important that you, like I said, control the things that you can during your pregnancy so that you can feel good during your pregnancy and then also after, and you're not having to work so hard to get that extra weight off. And another thing is you don't have to blame your baby for ruining your body. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to my second point. Biggest thing that you want to be mindful of too is that you may experience morning sickness. And this is kind of where nutrition can get kind of wonky. If you're somebody that does experience morning sickness during your pregnancy, a lot of times you'll find that you can't necessarily eat even like the healthiest foods, because even if you try to, your body's just like, that's really gross, I can't hold it down, vomit, you know. So it's totally understandable that you may not get the healthiest foods at that time. But the goal is just to kind of eat and drink things that help soothe your stomach. So a lot of the times, like I was saying, even with morning sickness, if you have good intentions of eating well, you may not be able to eat well because you just can't keep food down. And the biggest thing at this point is just to try to soothe your stomach and try to keep some food down. So you may eat extra calories here because you're eating different things, or things that are like higher in sugar, because a lot of times morning sickness can be soothed with sugary or carbs really type foods. So that's just kind of something for you to be mindful of. So I have my blog posted, or I will have it posted by the time this comes out. And I have a list of different things on here that I think would be very helpful in order to help alleviate some morning sickness. So I'm just going to go just kind of through a couple that I thought were very helpful for me. One was just sipping on lemonade. Like I had a craving for lemonade, but two, lemonade, even though it's acidic, which is kind of weird, it actually helps with reducing that nausea feeling that you feel. So just sipping on real lemonade, I'd recommend staying with regular sugar. If you want to do stevia, you could definitely do that. But I try to keep things very just kind of like basic for myself. So if you're worried about sugar intake, you can definitely do a alternative. I just did regular sugar for myself. But that's something that I really enjoyed, and it really helped soothe my stomach. Another thing that I thought was very helpful during my morning sickness was actually eating applesauce. Applesauce was really good. So applesauce is actually in the Brat Diet, which I do have included in my blog. And it's just a food that is very basic. There is no like added sugar. There is no fats or oils that could irritate your stomach. And there's no spice. It's very bland, which is kind of what you go for during that Brat Diet. But it was really good. Like I could eat a whole bowl of applesauce and it would make me feel full. So the Brat Diet just consists of banana, rice, applesauce, and toast. And the reason I'm saying the Brat Diet is because normally it's recommended to people who have like a stomach bug, just to kind of help soothe their tummy. So morning sickness is kind of like that, so that's why I'm recommending that diet here. But I wanted to go ahead and also mention that vitamins are super important. So just make sure you have your vitamins, because if you aren't getting the nutrition that you need because you're dealing with morning sickness, you can at least get vitamins in and kind of supplement your health during that time frame. So that's really something that you should look forward to within the first trimester, because your body's going through a lot of different changes. You're having a lot of hormonal shifts, which causes that morning sickness. So that's morning sickness. I'm going to go ahead and hop into cravings. So cravings are actually, surprisingly, I've done reading, and sometimes you can get sort of like, how would you say, sucked into one idea. So for a while, I actually thought cravings were more of like a deficiency thing, but surprisingly, they're really not. So sometimes you can have like a vitamin deficiency that causes really weird cravings, or just large cravings in general. But when it comes to pregnancy and just kind of cravings in general, it leads to the reason, so let me back up. Woohoo! Getting too ahead of myself. Hormonal changes are the root of cravings, okay? So even if you aren't pregnant, if you're somebody that has your menstrual cycle, usually about the time your hormonal, so we go through phases, hormones spike and then they start dropping, and that's kind of how periods are. So during that hormonal shift, you may start like experiencing moodiness, wanting chocolate, wanting, chips, whatever, salty foods, sweet foods. And this is what's happening in pregnancy too. The difference with pregnancy is that it's just a little more intense. So like for me, period cravings, I can kind of like subside and kind of like, let me just wait a day and kind of see if I really wanted it. Excuse me. Pregnant is your period. But again, just kind of re-talking about cravings root from hormonal shifts. So during pregnancy, cravings can be a little more intense, which is what I've come to find. So like I was saying before, during period cravings, I could kind of like wait a day and be like, oh, obviously I didn't really need it. You know, it was just kind of like that period in time. But with pregnancy cravings, for me, what I've come to find is that it was really hard to actually kind of wait a day and see if it went away. So even if I tried to tell myself, okay, I don't need lemonade, I don't need a Sonic burger, you know, all these things that I was craving, it was like, even though that craving was like a week or two ago, I still had that very like intense craving. It was like my mouth was just kind of like, I need lemonade, or I need that's very specific, like a Sonic burger. And, you know, I tried very hard, even with my first and now with my second, to really like push off those cravings. But like I said, pregnancy cravings are very different and have a very different intensity. So what I would say is to go ahead, you can try to kind of push the craving off, you know, maybe a few hours a day, kind of see, but just be mindful that craving may come back. And in all honesty, what I've come to find is that if I just give myself that craving and just kind of give myself grace during that time, that craving didn't come back after that initial period. So like I was saying, cravings are rooted from a hormonal shift. So it's super important to be mindful that you don't necessarily need these cravings or extra calories from these cravings. So going back to the first point, you don't really need extra calories during your first trimester. So it's important that you kind of practice mindfulness during your first trimester, and I'd say all the trimesters, just so that you aren't, one, eating a ton of extra calories during your first trimester, and two, now that you know that cravings come from a hormonal shift, you may be able to kind of like alleviate some of those, or just kind of like push those off to the side until it's like one of the cravings where you're just like, I need this like right now. So that's just that. But yeah, that's something I wanted to talk about because cravings usually start within the first trimester. Like most of the time, even for my first and my second pregnancy, before I actually knew I was pregnant, I had certain cravings. There was no particular reason as to why, other than my hormones were shifting because I was pregnant. Last thing I wanted to talk about on here was your water intake. So if you're somebody that doesn't really drink a ton of water, it's really important to drink water during pregnancy. And in all honesty, it's important to drink water all the time in all periods of life. But your blood volume is actually increasing as you are pregnant, which is why sometimes you hear like mothers are hotter, or like, oh, she needs the AC on even though it's like 68 degrees outside or something like that. Like, or you hear like, oh, you got that double blood pumping sort of deal. And this is true because, like I said, your blood volume does increase, and water actually helps with that increase. Another thing is that some women may feel hotter or warmer. One, because the blood volume is increased, but two, they're not consuming the water to kind of circulate that new blood or the denser blood. So it's important to make sure that you're drinking your water. Something that does happen within first trimester is sometimes you kind of feel cloudy. So it's really good to just have that water to consume in order to have more mental clarity. And water is important because it can help reduce kind of like brain fog. Like I was saying, in the first trimester, it can be a little tough to, honestly, there's so many hormonal changes that sometimes even your brain doesn't work the way it needs to. You kind of feel like cloudy, foggy, even though you're probably a really smart person and like normally have a flow of things, you're just kind of like, what is going on? So water consumption does definitely help that because your brain, your brain needs water too. So that's something to be mindful of. Another thing, not something you really need to worry about at this point in time, is like swelling. Some people may experience swelling like in their fingers or in their feet, but this is more along like later down the road when you start getting heavier and bigger because the baby's getting bigger. This just helps, water consumption just helps kind of reduce the swelling or just avoid you from getting swollen like other people do. So water, like I said, very important to kind of help circulate that new dense blood in your body. And really the biggest thing is just kind of like mental fog, because that bothered me a ton. Another point that I have for water, again, this is on my blog too. It's hydration for you and your baby. So again, water's just great in all stages of life. So just try drinking water. Even though you're probably going to have to pee, like you already have to pee a ton during pregnancy, even if you need to pee more, that's totally fine. Like it's worth going to the restroom a few extra times. Like even if you're at work, you get a nice little pee break and then you can go back to work. So it's not really a big deal, very helpful for you, beneficial for you. And just know that your body does increase in weight from water during your pregnancy because of that blood volume. So something to be mindful of is that you will gain pounds in water, but once you have that baby, that'll shed off pretty quickly. So that's something that is a really good kind of like point to kind of think about when it comes to like water. Because let's say, for example, I'll use myself for example in this. I drink a ton of water. Of course, I did eat during my pregnancy. I ended up gaining 50 pounds in my first pregnancy. I'm still going through this one, so don't really know. But I, worked out, ate, drank my water, did what I needed to do, took my vitamins. I ended up, once I had that baby, because as soon as you have that baby, your body is trying to go back to its normal self. I lost 20 pounds just having the baby, like within 2 days. Well, 2 days. So it was like, had the baby, was at the hospital in the morning, went home, weighed myself. I had already lost 20 pounds. So that's just something to look forward to, because sometimes if you step on the scale, so like you step on the scale when you first get pregnant, or like before you get pregnant, you kind of know where you're at. Then you get pregnant, then you see like your ending pregnancy weight. A lot of that has to do with like hormone changes, your body holding on to water to keep cushion in your body, and then blood volume. So just be mindful of that. Water's super important here. So again, I just wanted to go over that because that's really important to know, because you may feel like you've gained a ton of weight in your pregnancy, but if you've been doing everything right, eating your solid meals, kind of balancing exercise and your nutrition and drinking your water, you should shed a lot of that weight pretty quickly. So that's a bonus to look at. So again, we're trying to make postpartum life a lot easier. And then last few things, first trimester, you may not experience a ton of constipation. That's usually later on, but if you are somebody that does deal with constipation, water is very helpful. And then it also controls blood pressure. So again, if you've ever heard like women are just kind of hotter during pregnancy, it's just because they may not be consuming water, and it's just really the biggest thing is your blood volume is increased. So just being mindful, water will help regulate blood pressure for you. So if you're somebody that already has high blood pressure, you can kind of help regulate that with water. Or if you want to avoid getting high blood pressure during your pregnancy, water would be good to ingest on a daily basis. And I think that's pretty much about it with your first trimester. So just making sure you're eating good meals. Of course, if you can't get those good meals, go and find foods that actually make you feel good or make you actually soothe your tummy, especially if you're having morning sickness. Cravings, again, are rooted from a hormonal shift. So don't think it's, oh, baby's telling me I need to eat steak and potatoes tonight, or oh, baby is telling me I need to eat pizza and ice cream tonight. Again, we're trying to take responsibility as mothers and say, I am the reason I gained this weight during pregnancy. So again, just be mindful. We are in control here, and pretty much what we eat, baby has to eat. So if you want your baby to have a very well balanced diet, come out a very healthy weight, control what you can here. If you really enjoyed this content, go ahead, like, share, and subscribe. Subscribe. You can also follow this on my podcast if you don't have time to actually watch a video. Or I'll actually be blogging this as well. Just to have, if you're somebody that likes to read, or if your husband or partner is like, what are you watching? You can actually read most of what I went over today in an article, very much shortened, doesn't have as much like extra little tidbits in there, but gives you the idea of what you need for your first trimester. But again, my name is Monica, if I haven't introduced myself. You can follow me on my Instagram, YouTube, my Facebook. You can just find me at Enjoy the Fit. It's NJOYTHEFIT. And I am a personal trainer, a mama, and an exercise physiologist. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I really liked being able to share this with you because I thought it was something very important and something that I looked for during my first pregnancy. So hopefully this kind of helps give you some peace of mind and you can kind of cruise through the first trimester. But I'll see you guys on my next video. We'll be talking about second trimester nutrition. And if you have any questions in regards to this video or are wanting specifics within the second trimester, let me know and I'll go ahead and see if I can accommodate those. But it was nice being able to talk to you guys. I'll see you on the next one. Bye.